The biggest battle we will ever have to face is the battle between you and you. It's the battle of taking your mind to that limit and then breaking through. On the Mindful Experiment podcast, we will share concepts, universal laws, and interviewing individuals who have done just that, who have gone through the dark times and through those moments allowed their light to shine bright. I'm your host, Dr. Vic Manzo, and I want to thank you for listening to the podcast and taking this journey with me as we discover different avenues to break through those limits, expand your reality, and evolve into the person you desire to be. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello, ladies and gents. This is Dr. Vic, and you are listening to The Mindful Experiment. In this episode, we had the delight to interview Susan Merson. She's an acclaimed author, an actress, educator, director, and producer. Now looks into a new light. It was a joy to have Susan on the show. We dove into so many different concepts. It was really a joy for me to get to know this wonderful lady and all the experiences that she had in the acting and the directing and the producing side of things, and then her spiritual side with tarot and all the amazing things she did. What a wonderful lady. I mean, Susan is, she's the former artistic director who won acclaim for navigating the 13th Street Repertory Theater out of financial ruin to once again take its places as one of the leaders of the off-Broadway movement, is bringing her canon of literary works to the surface at the time when she is also sharing her spiritual acumen with the artistic community. Merson, whose Broadway foray includes Zeffirelli's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Children of a Lesser God, as well as co-creating and appearing in the original production of Vanities off-Broadway. On the West Coast, she co-founded and served as the moderator for the Los Angeles Writers Block with writer Jane Anderson, which has supported the work of such writers as Donald Margulies, he's a Pulitzer, Noni White, and Bob Tuesdyke, Tony for Newsies. Newsies. Irene Meshy, Lion King, Janet Fitch, White Oleanders, and the countless others. Currently, Susan's visibility as an author is picking up speed with the publication of Dreaming by Daylight and a novel currently available on Amazon. What many don't know is that she is also an intuitive counselor. She started doing tarot in the early 70s after taking a course at the Theosophical Society here in New York City. Since that time, she has continued her study with Master Teachers Rachel Pollack, Greer, Ellen Goldberg, as well as an online study of several intuitive teachers such as Lena Rodriguez and Linda G. She also has worked with the healer and intuitive Kadea Metara for many years and has recently decided to read publicly as well for her friends. She specializes in working with artists on creative work, often helping to discover source of blocks and character arcs for many writers and their projects. She believes that the cards can be an important intuitive tool for anyone interested in connecting to the nonverbal, visual, and symbolic cues that the cards offer. This was really a joy for me to have Susan on the show, and I know you'll have a joy listening to her story and all the stuff that she shares, her wisdom, and so much more. So with no further ado, here is Susan Merson. So Susan, I'm excited to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
I was doing some research on you, reading all the stuff that you've done and so forth as a former artistic director. You won some wonderful accolades and all those wonderful things. Very, very awesome. And congratulations on all the work that you have done. I know you're doing. As I was looking through some of the stuff, some things that caught my interest, as always, is like you're shifting to how does someone get into like tarot and that side of the work and that type of stuff. Because I always believe, and in chiropractic, we always say, chiropractic, you didn't choose chiropractic. Chiropractic chose you, and and I find that to be true in a lot of professions. I always believe some things like there's like a calling or a burning desire. What kind of like got you interested or pushed your kind of universe nudged you into a way of being open or interested in tarot, especially in the early 70s?
Sure. Well, the early 70s was, the land of hippies, but I'm an artist. I'm a theater person. And I started my training as an actress very, very young, when I was really 7 or 8 years old, and have been working all that time. And so by the time the 70s came, when I was in my 20s, I was ready to, I already had a grounding in more than one way to look at the world, right? The artist training is to clear away all the debris and allow a character or an inspiration to come through you. It's not an egocentric, art is not an egocentric practice. It's a discipline. You're allowing things to come through you. So at that time, I was wandering around New York City like everybody else, and I went past the Theosophical Society, and then I'd always been very interested in Madame Blavatsky and thought I could be her in a solo performance play or something. And I thought that they were having a tarot class. And I grabbed my best friend at the time, and we sat down and we took our very first class in the Theosophical Society and began to learn how these cards, these symbols, these pictures had a different kind of resonance. And as the years went by, the resonance of the symbols and the photographs and the pictures all grew with my own understanding of the world. So that's how I got into it. I got into it really just out of curiosity. And the more I grew as an artist, the more I realized there were other ways to access our existence, our reality. And it's not just two-dimensional, that's for sure.
I love it. And I love how you said that this is what art doesn't have any ego to it. I think it's impossible. I mean, you could make anything out of anything, but like turn something into that way. But it really, when you get into the art process, it's impossible to be egotistical or left brain dominant.
Absolutely. It's not about us as artists. It's about the fact that we've been asked to clear the decks and let things come through us. And so when somebody says, there's something very different between being an artist and being a celebrity, of course,
Yes.
You're asked, it's a spiritual discipline. Franz Kafka said all art is a form of prayer. And I learned that one early on. And it's really very true. You have to be humble. You have to be quiet. You have to be silent. You have to do intentional listening. Get out of the way and allow spirit to come through you. We would say in the spiritual community, allow spirit to come through you. In the acting community, it's just shut up, get out of the way of the character. And it's all the same stuff. That's what I think is so interesting. And certainly at this time of my life, the way in which this is all coming together, my artistic work and my spiritual work, it's all the same thing, especially now.
And I love how you bring that up, because it's you saw through being a novelist, an artist, a writing coach, and everything that you do. I love how you just say it's all the same stuff. There's really no difference. Yeah, left brain labeling, totally different world, but and the right brain side, no, it's all the same process, same stuff, same thing.
Yes, I was laughing the other day. I was listening to something, and some male-oriented fellow was doing a program on creativity, and he was interviewing all these scientists about being creative. And they were all talking about statistics and how alcoholism is 20% and this and that. And I had to it was the first time I really wanted to get on the telephone and talk to someone and say, boys, you're missing it here. It's not about a linear construct. It's about something larger. And if you just calm down and get out of your head, there's lots of tools that will allow us to navigate the time that we have on the planet. So true.
I love that. And and with like the arts and what you were talking about earlier, how we said it couldn't be, you said ego can't get involved. I mean, it's all about the other. It's serving others, sharing others. Like if you're in a play or doing a show or something, or even a movie, you have to think of the character, let yourself go. You got to let go of the ego and what you are, and just be that part and kind of serving another person in a sense, sharing to the audience and that kind of thing.
Right. But if you're really real and truly true, and you are, let's say, egoless, you're still part of a larger identity. If you believe, depending on where you are, that we're all, a spark of the divine, which I hate to tell you, but that's the way it is, then you have to recognize that you may not be the prettiest girl at Studio 54. I'm dating myself, but you're still part of the larger. You're still part of the larger God force. So it's not a question of whether your dress is prettiest. It doesn't make any difference. Your spirit is still part of the larger spirit. And we come in individually as souls to figure out, to accomplish something. Maybe it's a karmic choice, maybe, whatever it is, again, depending on your own beliefs. But I believe we come in because of some kind of soul contract. And we end up at particular times in our lives, especially trying to figure out, what the heck is this supposed to mean? How am I supposed to get through this? And that's where I find not only journaling and some of the more intellectual things, but I do find that tarot can be very helpful in picking up some of the resonant questions that we have and allowing us to explore it with ritual and with symbol and mythic stories and all that stuff that has been placed in the world so that we can figure stuff out, so we can move along,
I love that. And real quick, just to address, do you believe that there's a misconception when it comes to tarot cards? Do you think that people just think it's woo-woo stuff or a gypsy from somewhere? Do you still see that at all? Because I know growing up in the society I grew up in, they would shun upon those type of things.
Oh, sure. Yeah. My mother, God bless her, she's on the other side, but she's still worried about the fact that I'm a little odd, but of course, people get scared about it, and it's silly. It's, I'm all about demystifying all of that. I think in the, when tarot was more under the radar, it was the gypsies, God bless them, the Romany folks that have these storefronts. And of course, you go in and they say, oh my God, you're cursed. And if you come back and give me $100 tomorrow, I'll fix it. That's not what tarot is. That's something else. Tarot is a system that's been developed over many years that gives us clues into what we're feeling, thinking, breathing, and how we're existing. And it's not magical. It's very real. I once attended, years ago, a reading with the guy who wrote, oh gosh, my brain, Joseph Campbell, the guy who wrote the, myths and all of that stuff. And somebody asked him, oh gosh, Mr. Campbell, do you believe in astrology and tarot? And he said, oh no, of course not, but I'll be goddamned if it doesn't work all the time. And I thought, oh yeah, right. Okay, I get it. So that's, anyway, I hope I'm making some sense on that. I do believe that people get afraid of it. They think that it's somehow special and it's, woo-woo and all of that. Nah, it's just normal. It's just regular, because we've got more senses operating right now than we had previously. Our planet is evolving, and from a scientific point of view, not a woo-woo point of view, but a scientific point of view, quantum physics is showing us that the universe is expanding, and the way in which we exist in the universe is changing. We're no longer a species that only has 5 senses operating. Everybody's got more than 5 senses going on. We're a multi-sensory beings. I think part of the work for folks like me and people who, sort of have lived and dabbled and lived in this world for many years, our job is to sort of spread the word about that and say, hey, you've got more than a straight line to deal with here. And you've got lots of opportunities to grow and become more fully yourself. So that fascinates me. And I think that's important work. And that's the work that I've done for years. First as an actress, then as a writer, then as a teacher, and now as a coming out of the closet as a tarot person as well.
I love it, and it's so true that the universe is expanding. And what's interesting is about that, and I find fascinating, is that the expansion rate of how much the human species and the planet is expanding everything expands. We're expanding with, like, it's, if we like kind of looked at how fast is the universe expanding, and then we look at how fast are we expanding, it's identical. It's the same.
Absolutely. But, again, forgive me, but the old male paradigm is going away, and it's a linear paradigm. That's a linear paradigm. And as the Me Too movement, there's no mistake that there's more women in Congress. There's no mistake that, the feminine is becoming more part of the mainstream once again. And that's multidimensional. That's not linear. And that helps everybody, even, our dear, confused president. He's fighting it. They're so fighting it so hard. Oh my God, these guys are just, I will not give it up, and look what's happening. We're crushing and crumbling our society, but it's all coming apart, but it'll all come back together.
That's so true. And it's kind of like, I think of like a mosaic, right? You got to break the pieces down, but then you put the pieces back together and you get something that's more, I don't want to say profound. That's the best of I can't figure out a better term than that right now. But it's one of those things where you put it back, or there's like a story of like an old clay bowl, and they had a competition, and what ended up happening was the king who chose the one that won, the best clay bowl that was created. Then when they were about to give it to him, they dropped it and it broke. And they were like, what happened there? All this stuff. And then someone said, I can put this together. And they took gold into the cracks, and when the gold sealed, they would seal everything together. And then when they finished it, the bowl was actually a lot more beautiful than its original form. Yeah. And I use that as a great story, because it's like sometimes things that have to go that route, because we're stirring things up to put it back together and be even better.
Right. But, it's volitional. That's why it's important now that those of us who kind of get all this and aren't freaked out by it, speak out, because it's volitional. You have to say yes to all of who you are. We need it. It's not a joke. It's not marginal. It has to do with how we work in the world. We can't operate on a straight line anymore as a society in relationships. I mean, look at everything that's going on, gender fluidity and binary and this and that. And, I'm a different generation, so I admit my ignorance in terms of, terminology. But it's a different kind of flow that is here. It's not, way out or far out. It's here. So just ease on down the road, open the door, don't worry, and allow yourself to be more. And that's what the arts, and that's what being a practicing artist has always allowed somebody to do. And, certainly working in spiritual disciplines does that as well. You don't need permission to be a full person. You need silence to understand that you're bigger than what you think you are.
So true in so many ways. And I always, one thing that always gets me, I see, and I know as a woman, I'll share it this way, and you'll appreciate what I'm saying here at the end when I get to the end part, because it's all about women want to have equality, right? They want to be treated the same. And I always look at that from a neurological standpoint and say, no, you don't. You don't want to be treated the same, because here's why. Women are more advanced from a brain level than men are. So they don't, why would you devolve yourself to go to that level? I mean, does it make sense? I mean, it's one of those, like, because women are more, like, when you look at the brain and how it all neural connectiveness is and everything, women are more advanced, unfortunately, and guys don't like to hear that. And I'm always like, it's the truth. You can argue all you want, but here's the facts. You can't argue the facts. And so that's why women can take on more. They can do more. They're more intuitive. They're more centered in some ways, and so much more. Multitasking is me.
That's what motherhood is about. But it's not even a question of who's smarter or who's better wired or any of that stuff, because we're all on our own path and we're all at different places, right?
Yes,
so
totally.
some guys are at, at the first step and other people are at the 12th step, or, we know a lot of people with 12 steps, etc. And so it's not a question of that so much, right? It's a question of, well, oh, okay, this is where I am. And, oh, look, that's where you are. Oh, aren't we at the same place in some ways? Well, yes, we are. So I think that, we are one, man. We are one in this beautiful, diverse culture that we live in. Oh my God, it's so great to see different flavors and everyone feeling that they have a voice in our society. And all of this terrible political stuff is really allowing and teaching us what's really important, what's really real and truly true. And if we can just stay out of panic, stay connected to what we really know to be true, I think we're going to be just fine. But it takes some work, and answers change. Things change. The only thing I remember, oh God, my first heartbreak, I remember reading Suzuki Roshi's book about Zen, and I remember putting a major red line under the horrible truth that the only thing you can count on is change. And getting comfortable with that, getting comfortable with the mobility of our souls, the mobility of our compassion, the mobility of our ability to understand each other, and what really is language, what really is, how do we really speak to each other? One of my great quotes that I love to use in my teaching is, people are like poetry, they happen between the lines. And I think that that's true of our work now, either in tarot or in anything we do. You'll see all these corporate training things or some marketing, I'm going to teach you how to be the great corporate trainer or the great marketer or whatever. And what they forget is they forget the silent parts. They forget the parts that don't have words. And when you're an actor and when you're a writer, you know that the part where you're not talking is the most important part. That's the place, because we get out of the noise, and we get out of the noise.
It's funny It's funny how you bring that up, because in public speaking, in the training that I've done, it always talks about the pause is one of the most powerful things.
Mm-hmm. But the pause is just listening. That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's like if they can tell you, okay, take a pause here. Well, what are you doing in the pause? You always have to be active, right? Well, what you're doing is you're actively listening.
Yeah.
So what we're saying is, let's be active listeners. Calm down. Listen more. One of the things I think so interesting in our society, and you can tell I'm a real cranky old person, but when the kids get on, when you're talking to like the Sprint guys or the guys, the people on the telephone who have these terrible scripts they need to read, and you ask them one question, like, what is my bank balance? And they say, well, according to and they go on for like 25 minutes. And I have often said to them, okay, stop talking, listen to my question, and see if you can respond in one word. And they get very upset with me, of course, and send me over to the manager as a cranky old person. But I do think it's important that in our society, we get back to figuring out how to listen. And you listen with your eyes sometimes, and that's also a new challenge for us, because we don't often, as you and I are not looking in each other's eyes, we're only talking on media, we miss out. Because we miss out on, we have to figure out what the clues are, that we don't have the opportunity to really feel each other's energy in the room, or see what, where your eyes are flicking and where you're bored and where you're not, and all that stuff, which is to the detriment in our society. I think that's somehow how we kind of gotten off track a little bit, is because media does not allow us to really interact fully we have to interact with an actor's as if, the idea that, oh, if I were in the same room with that person, I would know this, this, and this. So I'm just going to assume this, this, and this. So I grew up in the area in the time when you only talked to people when you saw them. You didn't see them on telephones or Skype or any of that stuff. You had to go in and talk to somebody, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And see how the world has changed? You can't even get a job now. You can't go into a place and apply for a job. It's only on a piece of paper. What is that? Something screwy about that. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. You're bringing up really great points because, like my next question was just going to be, how much do you think social media has played as a huge part to disconnect us more than connecting with people?
Well, I don't think, like anything else, I do think social media and all this stuff is fabulous because it does connect the world. I mean, look, you and I are in different cities and we're having this great conversation. So for that end of it, it's fabulous.
Yes.
But then those folks who are the generation that always had social media don't have the institutional memory of what it's like to feel like going in and talking to the guy at the coffee shop when you need a job, right?
Exactly.
So you have to figure out how you begin to replace that. Where is the compassionate connection on in these electronic ways of connecting? I mean, is it more comfortable for folks to be in virtual reality than real reality? I think in some ways it is, and that's why I think education has got to begin to address that. I taught playwriting for 10 years, and the light of teaching is being in the room with somebody. That's how people learn. They don't learn from reading. They learn from example, right?
Exactly.
And so, then they put me online, and I said, excuse me, wait a minute. You think I can teach writing to somebody by not looking at them? So it was very challenging. And I did it for, maybe 4 or 5 years. And then I said, sorry, no. And I insisted that I go once a month to see the kids in person. And then after a while, that model was not acceptable. So I think education's got to take another look at that and recognize, again, we are multi-sensory human beings. And that goes for media as well. So let's not ignore, let's not, let's not narrow our scope. Let's make sure we get it larger. And I think it's challenging. I don't have an answer, but I do think it's challenging.
Well, yeah. I also see, like, you brought up something that I think about often. Like, I do a lot of online classes and I do stuff like that on my other business outside of chiropractic. But one of the things that I find fascinating is public speaking live with people in front of me. Massive transformation, massive changes, like 90+% of the room. I can, because I'm in them, I'm with them, I feel the energy. When I do online stuff, sometimes I'm speaking, there's no audience. I'm just recording things. And
right, exactly. Yeah.
There's not that, like, you're talking about multisensory, where I'm tapping into my intuitiveness. I'm getting into the feelings that I'm feeling in the room. Where's the energy at? How does it feel? Do they like what I'm talking about? And just sensing and listening, or being aware of what that is compared to online. I think that is a huge miss. That's what I was kind of get to, because I know there's been studies that have done, and all the studies that are coming out about social media are all the negative side of things, which I do agree about a lot. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I was just going to say, I do believe there's a lot of positive too. Nothing is ever one way. Right. Law of duality will state that, but it's one of those things where how much have we let that run our lives? And you brought up another great point. The people who are growing up with social media and never had nothing else, that is what I think is a big issue. Because, like, for you and I, we didn't have social media all our lives.
But listen, here's something that's really interesting, I think. For instance, I have a teacher, because I'm old and you need teachers all your life. And so my teacher's in California, and every 2-3 times a year she does a call, right? And, you get on the call and you listen and you think, oh, well, I'm sitting in my room in New York City and whatever. And then all of a sudden you feel this energy, like a Reiki energy or her energy that she can send out. Right?
Yes.
And she can embrace me, right?
Yep.
So what's the training for people like you who are working on social media and interacting with these huge people? Well, okay, so that's why we need to expand our ability to connect with those senses that are not part of the five, right?
Yep.
The larger sense, so that we can send our energy out in the world and people can feel it. And I think that the model for that is like Reiki energy, where you can be sitting in California and somebody in Peru can send you Reiki energy and you can be whacked out of your mind after 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting thing. And I think that's a good training for those light workers or those folks who are going to be working on, these non-personal platforms. So that's part of the training. That's got to be part of the training. It's not just learning how to take a pause. It's learning how to really connect. How do you really connect with somebody? So that, I think, is fascinating. And, that spiritual training for online speakers, for webinars,
You bring up You bring up a good point. Well, because my background's in energy medicine, so I'm a Reiki master and trainer, and so some of the things I do.
Wow.
So when I speak, I do that. I'll project energy out so when people listen to me, they're like, "Wow, I just felt like I felt the presence. I felt like I can open up my heart a little bit." And I'm like, anything I do, I always do that. How can I put my little something into it?
Right.
And I was quoted when I first got into this over 10 years ago. People would be like, some of my family members are like, "What are you doing? That's like woo-woo stuff. What are you talking about? That's so out there." And I'm like, listen, I'm in Dallas, going to school in Dallas. My family's in Chicago. And I'm like, listen, what I want you to, first of all, I'm like, I'm going to show you how crazy this is. I'm like, what are you doing in the kitchen cooking right now? They're like, well, that was a good guess. Okay. You're cooking baby broccoli. How do you know this? I'm like, well, I'm just tapping into a field and things come to me. I don't know what those things are. And I just share it. And if I'm
there
right,
you go. There you go. That's right.
But it's interesting when you start playing with the energy and knowing that we're all connected, just like the internet connects us all in that way. And that's where I think technology. That's why I don't. It may sound like I was bashing it. I wasn't really bashing. I was just trying to bring up an issue with it. But I also believe why is social media showing us something that I think we're not aware of enough to show us that that's how we really are. We're all connected. We don't need the technology.
It's fascinating, isn't it? It's really, one of the things that happens when you start, I'm sure I think perhaps you've experienced this, but what happened to me is, I'm a pretty intuitive cookie anyway, because, I'm an artist, but what happened to me as I've really been doing more and more tarot readings and going deeper is I often get, as I learn to balance the energy, I often get visitations. It's like, oh, who are you coming in the room? It's like the other day I was reading for a friend of mine and her father showed up over my shoulder who died about a year ago. And I thought, okay then, hi. Hi, Joe, how are you? And I had to figure out, where it's appropriate to welcome that in and where it isn't. I think, for instance, when you go through things like, I went through a great loss with the loss of my husband in a terrible way, and that just cracked open my psyche, right? So when that was cracked open, I had to be pretty careful about what was coming in,
Yes.
And, there are folks who, you can study mediumship and all that other stuff. Myself, it's not for me. I got enough going on this side of the divide, so that's not my job in this time around. But I mean, I do appreciate the folks that can work in that other dimension or in an additional dimension in a way that they can control. It's a question of learning that. That's all part of, it's like the Harry Potter training, at Hogwarts, they should have a nice class in figuring out how do you deal. We already know about senses 1 through 5, and we know about the Sixth Sense because of that movie. But let's talk about a training in senses 7 through 12, okay?
Yeah.
And I think it starts with chakra training, and it starts with yoga, and it starts with mind-body stuff. And that is the education that I think in the next 20, 30 years is going to be really important, is helping people to manage this onslaught of energy. One of the reasons we're all kind of kaflooey these days is because there's more energy hitting the planet, and our bodies aren't able to handle it, right? We can't digest it. except for those folks who are light workers. And, we've been working on it for a few years. So those of us who are a little bit further down the plane, okay, we'll help the others. But everybody's got to get on board, little children, because it's here, it's happening, right?
Yes.
So how do we, as educators and spiritual teachers, and how do we sort of develop that kind of training that is not all about going to Costa Rica to do yoga? It's got to be larger. It's got to be more at the grocery store. Let's not make it a class thing. I think the only way you begin that is to model it. I mean, I feel like I'm Moses on the mountaintop. I'm not sure I'm going to get to that place where that's all happening on the planet, but I sure do see it as the way we need to go in terms of education and embrace of our lifetime.
No, I totally agree with you more. And I think, and I think some of the ways, and this is kind of how I do it in my approach, is I use left brain linear, well, not linear, just left brain thinking with right brain stuff. And I try to merge the two as much as I can, so that, because we're so stuck on Google and this and logical and knowledge and thinking and all this stuff, and we're never tuning in as much. And I try to use, here, this is what I'm talking about, but here's something here's on the left side. Let me show you what this does, how it ties to that, how it can support that. And then it's like, oh, okay, the mind doesn't shut it off. It kind of goes, all right, wait a minute. They tied something logical that I can grab onto, because that's what they've probably been conditioned probably their whole entire life.
Right. And you're not, and you're not scared, because you're showing them a bridge. Yeah. You're showing them how to do it. I think it's great. Yeah. It's that's the idea, and that's kind of what I try to practice with my tarot practice. And, I think all my work is spiritual anyway, but yeah, I mean, that's what I try to do. It's like, hey, come on along. It's not so terrible. Here, look, see, it's red. It's okay. It's the same red. That red, it's not, you don't have to be afraid of it, and, that's the ongoing creativity, certainly at this point in my life for me. I just think it's fascinating. How do I model this? This is my question. What is, okay, I mean, I don't spend too much time in the question, but I certainly, in the figuring out of it, is how do we best model this, just by living our lives? And I think Spirit's got a lot to do with it,
Yeah.
Spirit's in charge, and I would like it to go a little bit faster sometimes, but I'm not. If I'm not ready, I'm not ready. So it's all that. You got to get humble and big, and oh gosh, it's so exciting to be alive, isn't it?
It is. That's why when people get into these, one of the things I ask in my chiropractic office, I mean, my patients know this to the T. Every time they see me, tell me something good today. Mm-hmm. Tell me what's good today. And I always get blown away when they say, there's nothing good today. And I'm like, there's nothing good, nothing at all. Like, I go, there's someone in a hospital who will really argue with you right now about that. And sometimes I'll say that, sometimes I won't, but it depends on, I'll feel where they're at. Sometimes they're just, if someone's just like really having a bad, like in a rut and having a bad day, I'm just going to cozy along. I'm not even going to bother going into it. But but I think you brought up some good points, because there's like, I think the question too is like, how do you teach something that is so words cannot explain, because the language is so limited? And you brought up another point, which is modeling, which is kind of returning back to in the way I see things, like children, how we model, they model. So you have to, modeling is one way. But it really, I think, is a challenge to figure out how to, present something. So, from an esoteric spiritual side, and then say, okay, that high vibration, we can use it in images, we can use it in pictures, symbols, right? Those are high vibrations that can explain things beyond a left brain logical thinking. That's why I love tarot, because tarot is so great for that.
Exactly.
And so, but I think that's a challenge in a sense. And I think one of the things you're doing with tarot is helping kind of creating that bridge for people.
I think you do. The other thing I'm fascinated by is, I was in the television film industry and theater for years, celebrity, right? The celebrity, a lot of people are modeling themselves on celebrity. But the problem is, now some celebrities, quote unquote, are very involved in their own ego, things. But they're kind of figuring, gee, maybe I should use this in a different way. Like maybe I should, like I find Lady Gaga to be incredibly inspirational.
Yeah.
And not only for her talent, but the way in which she's quiet. When you just look at her face sometimes. And that girl knows what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
So, you got to hope that some of those folks who move into celebrity recognize, and I think they're trying to recognize where the leadership is, it's very tricky. It's very tricky. Very tricky.
But do you feel, and I'm not going down a conspiracy side, but do you feel that like these people who, especially in film, I mean, TV, it's very, I don't even know what the right word to use. Do you feel like some of these people, like Lady Gaga, you don't even hear about her much? At least I don't, and I don't watch the news or anything like that. I don't follow news, but it's one of those things where I'm like, before you heard her, I would hear about Lady Gaga all the time. Now all of a sudden, she made this massive change in her life. She had this huge transformation. She speaks out more now, and you don't hear about her.
Well, I mean, I think that's partly to do whether or not she's hired a PR person or not.
Gotcha.
I think I don't get into the conspiracy aspect of things. Listen, nobody. It's not going to be easy. We've been working on a male paradigm for a long time, and power is power, and money is money, and all that. That's what runs this society. So come on, let's cop to it.
Yeah.
Do the best we can. I mean, from my point of view, I'm a tiny little cog, in this world. So if I can affect 5 to 7 people, great. That's terrific. If I could teach my daughter that you can love in the world and trust the world, that's what I'm doing. I don't have an answer. Part of it is really faith. You have to believe that you're here for some reason. And then you have to believe that not only are you here for some reason, but you're part of something larger, and get humble and start listening. Because we got to believe that the world is a good place, right? That the universe is a good place. There's demons, there's devils, there's all that other Satan stuff going on, I suppose. But, if you don't empower it, then it doesn't exist in your reality. So it goes down to all that stuff. Live as you would hope to live, and golden rule and all that other stuff. I mean, we have to cope, and we have to be real about what's going on. The thing is, we got to figure out what is really real and truly true. And that's the job, is finding ourselves, that's the job. What is really real and truly true? And it changes perhaps. And I don't know, love and compassion are in there somewhere. And, and recognizing we have more than 5 senses, and okay. And if somebody's on the journey, I'd say, okay, first thing, let's see, go to a yoga class. Oh, I can't move. Go to a yoga class. And then talk to the teacher about moving only from 1 chakra, and then from 2 chakras, and then from 3. And then from there, you begin to get a sense that your body is part of something larger than yourself. And then that's where it starts. And then all of a sudden, if your body is something larger than yourself, then your arthritis isn't only yours. You can drop it. And then from there, you get to move to the next thing. I had a knee replacement this year. Oh my God. What an amazing opportunity to understand that my body was not totally mine. And am I happy that medical science lives, because my body now is fabulous. I get to walk. I hadn't been able to walk in 7 years. So I have great respect for the way in which this salad bowl of reality is moving ahead. But I do know that those of us who have some little inkling into larger ways of accepting input, we have to share that. And I'm not really sure how to do it. You just do the best you can. Everybody's got different gifts. For me, I know it's through my writing and my acting and my teaching and my tarot, and so that's my job. That's my little assignment. And I'd love to work with more and more people, so everybody can spread the word. I sound like an evangelist, but I remember when I was a kid watching those TV evangelists on TV, and the guy would put his hand on the kid's head and they'd say, heal, heal. And, you know, I mean, a lot of that was nonsense, but there was something about that great idea of faith. Maybe they were fools or maybe not, but maybe it worked.
I love
maybe
it.
it didn't. I don't know.
And you kind of answer the question I was going to ask next, but I think I'll just ask it anyhow, just to make sure if there's anything else. What are things that you would recommend that people can do to kind of help themselves, shift perspective, create the shift, get out of the five senses, and maybe you can start with what are other senses besides our five, and then how to make that shift.
Oh boy. Okay. So, okay, I can do that in 20 seconds. Okay, couple things. I have this theory that there are various levels of reality, right? And, you know, there's the level of manifestation, and then there's a level of ideas, and there's a level of manifestation, and then once it's manifested, how the idea is manifested, you put it in the world and you let the universe bombard it and become part of it, and then it goes to a larger manifestation. Okay, so that's hocus pocus, and I think it's got to be more explained than that. However, that's kind of my basic way in which I look at the world. I look at it from a chakra-based mind-body place. How can people move ahead? Okay, shut up and listen. That's the first thing. Shut up and listen. Take a walk and really take a look. Take a walk, take a look. Spend more time with your five senses. Get to know them. And then from there, see if you can't, you know, if it's eyes and nose and ears and mouth, right? And touch, what's the opposite? You know, if you spend time looking, spend time with your eyes closed. If you spend time smelling, spend time not smelling. You know what I mean? Try to pretend that there is nothing rich in the universe. You know, try to play with opposites in your life. And the big issue, you know, I mean, if you really want stuff that you really want to figure stuff out, go to a yoga class. Go to a meditation class, start to write, start to paint, do something nonverbal. That's the first step.
I like that. So kind of getting nonverbal, getting out to listening. When you say listen, is that listen to self, just listen in general to others at the same token, just be mindful? What label would you? Okay, cool.
There's something called intentional silence, which I really think is a good practice. You sit down in a chair, just 5 minutes, put on the timer, you know, make it a minute on your iPhone. It won't be so horrible. Put on the timer for a couple minutes, sit down in a chair, know that it's going to go on forever. Choose one word, okay? And that word, let's say, would be empty, okay? And that word is the word that's going to remind you when you start thinking. So you sit there and you try to empty your mind. And of course, your monkey brain, you'll be thinking of everything. And every time you have a thought, you just say the word empty. And you allow your brain to empty. You just keep saying it. And eventually, all of a sudden, you're going to get into a place of intentional listening. And when that happens, that's when the universe can speak to you. So that's one practice. The other way you can do it is just be an artist. Train in any way. That also will give you a connection to the universe.
I love that. I like it. That works. And I'm all big about I think people need to become more like find their artistic tune of what they enjoy and find what resonates for them. Because I think that's a huge way to balance things out.
And just remember, it's process. It's not product.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about process. It's not about product. You know, you're not, who knows if you're going to get famous? That may not be your path. But if you do the work, your life will be enhanced.
And I love that coming up, because my old thinking is I'm going to do this, this, and this. I'm going to be exposed to the world and be able to be, this and that. And then
they're going to recognize me and see that I'm a star.
exactly. And then the universe kept smacking me around and putting me to my knees and all this other stuff. And then eventually I was like, okay. And then I got to a certain point and I'm like, yeah, but that's not fulfilling. Like, you know what? I need to shift gears, and I just want to do this because of this, and that's it. And I don't care about nothing else. And it's amazing how, and what you said, that it just brought me back that memory of how fulfilling life has been now, and how more fulfilled I am just because of I'm doing what I do, and because I love doing what I do, and I don't care about anything else.
You have to, and if the fame comes and if the recognition comes, great. That's fun. That's gravy, and it's fun to put on the dresses. Not for you, or perhaps, I don't know. You can wear a dress if you like. But I mean, you get to get dressed up and go to those fancy parties. I mean, I was in the entertainment business, so I know about that stuff. But, it's really, you're not in charge of that. All you're in charge of is doing your work. And whether you get recognized or not in that way, you're not in charge of that. You can get another marketing guy, another PR guy, and you're not in charge of that. So I don't know. It is about figuring out what you have to offer and offer it. And stillness, quiet, all that other stuff, and laughing a great deal is very important.
So much. Much.
Yeah.
Do you have a special or a specific meditation practice? Is there something that you choose that you enjoy more over one or the other, or anything along those lines?
I think it changes, with your life. As your life changes, so do your meditation practices. I do meditate sometimes, but I won't say that I do it every day like the greatest, guru in the world. I write a lot. I share time with friends. That to me is extremely meditative. I also do a lot of fiber art and crocheting, and I can sit for hours making things that no one wants to see. But somehow that allows me to really still myself, to connect. I think you have to find that. I think people change. I am a yoga teacher. I'm a Pilates teacher. I'm a Reiki person. So, meditation, finding the practice that works for you, just begin. Who knows?
Yeah.
If it doesn't work, do something else. The world is full of many possibilities. I wish I could say, well, study with me and you'll find illumination. That'd be good. But, maybe you will, maybe you won't. So, we are in charge of our own lives.
And that's one thing I appreciate about you, is that you don't say what to think. You're just saying how. You can do this, you can do that, you can try this, but you have to find what works for you.
That's right, because we're all, we came in with our own jobs. My job is not yours. And we have to step up and take responsibility. We got to take responsibility for being light people, let the light in, baby.
I love it. One question. This might be a loaded question. Why do you think sometimes some people, and I think I know the simplistic answer, and I know you said it already, and I just want to revisit it real quick. Why is it that some people who do become celebrities and some don't?
I don't think we're in charge of that.
That's what I thought.
I think we're just not in charge. I mean, that has everything to do with what the conscience of the king is at a particular time. I mean, I had a screen test, right? When I was a young actress, I was brought in for a television show that ended up being very popular called Love Boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time, I was in an off-Broadway show, and I was kind of a hipster-dipster New York actress. And I'm dark-haired, and I was not a bad-looking kid, but very exotic looking, especially for the 70s. Oh my God. And, now my look at that time, if I looked like I look now and I was 20 years old, I would probably have gotten a lot farther in my career. I was too exotic at the time, right? But I came into the planet at a different time. So you think I'm in charge of that? I'm not in charge of that. It's disappointing, I could say, oh, let me get my teeth fixed and get my hair dyed, but I mean, give me a break. That's not going to work. I tried. Believe me, it's all bullshit. It's not going to try. It's not going to work. So I just have to believe that there's certain things that you're not in charge of. And I have lots of famous friends, and I have been part of a lot of famous, fancy things. But my friends are the ones who've gotten the Oscars and the Emmys, not me. So does that mean that I don't have as much talent or ability? No, I don't think so. I think that my path is different. And I think at certain times of your life, that becomes more of an issue. I'm already not a kid. And, when you're 40, when you're 30 and 40, it's more important because you think, oh, God, what am I going to do with my life? And then you realize you're not in charge, so you may as well just let that one go.
I love it. Yeah, there's a lot of acceptance to that. I mean, you just have to learn to accept. One thing that a lot of people don't. Some people say the word surrender. I say the word acceptance. Just accepting what is, and just continue what you can focus on doing every single day is all that matters.
I think it's compassion. It's compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
And just saying, oh, geez, and recognize, and really, again, not to be, spouting the party line, but I do think you can get connected to something larger than yourself, and all of a sudden you realize, oh, well, geez, that other bullshit is not worth it. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that right.
You can. It's all about being real, so you're good.
Okay. So, that's it. And then you spread it around. You just spread it around. And I know that when I teach, people are moved. And I say, well, okay, that's good. I did something good today, so I don't have an Oscar. That's okay. I got my own Oscar.
I love how you bring that up too, because it's really, the accolades are great, but I had someone I interviewed and we were really getting into this, and I was like, everyone has a powerful story. Everyone's here for a reason. Everyone, there's no one that's the same, not only as a human being, and I know you get this already, but even like on a spiritual level, there's no soul that are two of the same. And so you, me, and every other human being on this planet is all blessing the earth with our presence as just being here more than anything else.
Yeah, and listen, it's not always so easy to accept that. I mean, do you have time for a quick story? I'll tell you a quick story. I was in an off-Broadway show with a very famous person who ended up being very famous after the show, and she had gone on to Hollywood to and was in this film. We had the exact same career, and I had come off to Hollywood, and then I got married and I had a kid, and the Oscars. 2 months after my child was born, I was sitting watching the Oscars with my newborn baby in my arms, and there was this person who had been my nemesis in this show that we had done both gotten famous for in New York City, and there she was getting an Oscar, and I thought, what the heck? What is going on here? She's getting an Oscar, and then I looked down and I said, well, I got a baby. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So it was hard. It wasn't easy. It wasn't, oh, well, my beautiful child will take care of me. And that's nonsense. I mean, I was devastated that she got the damn Oscar and I didn't. But it wasn't my path. Yeah. And I've had a darn good life. So those are all the lessons. They're not easy.
I love it.
But they're fun.
They always are, right? In some way, shape, or form.
They gotta be. Gotta have a sense of humor. It's like, really? You're going to do this to me, God? Give me a break. You have to have a sense of humor.
You do. And I wanted to ask really quick about, you have a book on the Dreaming by Daylight, the novel. That I wanted to just touch base on it a little bit. And anytime anyone writes a book, I always love to ask this question about when you were writing it, who were you writing it for? Was there a purpose? Was it like you felt like I want to get this out there? These are the people I want to affect, or was it just, you had a call, you had a feeling and said, I'm just going to accept this. This is what I need to do, and that's it.
Well, I remember I'm an artist, so my life is all about expression, right?
Yes.
My first book I wrote was on solo performance because I was a solo artist for many years, for 8 years. That's called Your Name Here, An Actor Writer's Guide to Solo Performance. That one I wrote because I was one of the first people to do solo performance again in New York City in the 70s. That's still on Amazon. And the second one I wrote was this novel, Dreaming in Daylight, which was a coming-of-age story where I realized that I'd been a playwright for years. I realized that my own story was best told in a different kind of language than dialogue, right? Than plays. And so I wrote it to sort of check in and see if I could expand consciousness, once again, expand my horizons. And that's why I wrote this Dreaming in Daylight. And then from there, the next book that I wrote was When They Go and You Do Not, which is a blog, a nonfiction blog, tracing the very tragic death of my husband, how he got diagnosed with mesothelioma on December 26th and was dead by the Ides of March 15th. And that also is on Amazon. And then the last book that I've written, which I'm looking, putting in the world right now, is something called Sleeping with Ghosts. And that one I've written because I recognize that we are not alone here, that the people that have passed over before us are still with us, and the ones that we were able to give birth to and the ones we weren't able to give birth to, all those consciousnesses are part of our experience. And that's what Sleeping with Ghosts is about. And that one's hopefully going to come out this next year. But all of them are available on Amazon.com and or through my website at SusanMerson.com.
Well, I can't wait to check out some of these books, especially the Sleeping with Ghosts one. I know it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay, I'm looking for a publisher. So anybody, let me know.
Yes, ma'am. Of course.
There's excerpts around, and I've really had fun reading that one. That's just been great. So I look forward to putting that in the world.
I think it's good to, because it gives people that sense of if somebody passed, but they're still around. So wait, they're not gone. They're here. They're still.
Oh, you're not kidding. You're not kidding. Sometimes you got to tell them to shut up and sit down.
Oh, yeah. I could tell you stories, but I'll leave minimize.
Right. That's the next show. I know.
That's the next show. Yeah, we could definitely
right.
there. So how could people get a hold of you, get your, connect with you? I know you shared your website, if you mind repeating that again, and then other things that people can connect with you if they want to know more about you.
Well, I'm on Facebook as Susan Merson. My website is www.susanmerson.com, and you can connect with me through that and see everything that's cooking. We're in a bit of a we're reconstructing some stuff, and I can work with you. I can work with you as a personal coach. I can work with you through tarot. I can help you write a book, etc. And I'd love to sort of open the world. All of us are on the same path, and I just happen to be a little older, and I've learned a few things, so I'm here to offer it to anybody who's interested. And I look forward to connecting with your community. It should be great.
I love it. And you have such a great energy about you too. So it's really great to have you on and get to feel your energy and all that you're doing and bring it all to the table and at this stage of the game. So I appreciate you for all that, all the work you're doing.
Thank you. Likewise, I'm sure. It's been really fun.
And so, thank you for being on, and just greatly appreciate having you on. This was a lot of fun, a lot of different segues, and I appreciated it. I hope you enjoyed it just as much as I did.
Oh yeah, me too. I look forward to meeting you someday.
Yes, ma'am. Same here. Thank you for listening to the podcast. For past shows, please visit www.empoweryourreality.com. I hope this show inspired you and added to your life to help you on the journey to rediscover who you really are. To connect with us on Facebook, please visit www.facebook.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. Check us out on Twitter. The handle is Dr. Vic21. Follow us on Instagram www.instagram.com/Dr. Vic Manzo. If you were inspired by the podcast, pay it forward by sharing it with someone who you know can benefit from it. Thank you again for listening to the Mindful Experiment podcast, sharing paths to help you rediscover your infinite potential.